Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter and paramedic line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm Dirk, and today it's just Paul and myself. Paul, how are you?
I'm well. Excited to be podcasting again. It's such a challenge to get three or four of us together with all the shift work and life getting in the way and stuff like that. But I'm glad that you and I could get together this afternoon to do this podcast. It's excellent.
Yeah, really excited. So this is the first time I'm involved in one of those scripts, and it was kind of it's gonna be a. I don't think it's gonna be too long, because there wasn't a very in-depth investigation in there. But the reason why I've done this is because it's a line of duty death that happened in Cologne, Germany. I'm not sure if there's a Cologne in Texas. So that's why
There
I'm
might
saying
be.
Cologne, Germany. It happened in 1996, but that was a pivotal event for the fire service, not just in Cologne, but in Germany as a whole. So it had a very big influence on operations there. But we'll go into details when we talk about this.
It seems to me like there's less maybe firefighter line of duty deaths in Europe generally. We should do a comparison by population or responses or something to see, but it seems to me that they're not as frequent. I mean, we get a few in the UK. We did the Shirley Towers one. We have another one coming up in the summer. I can't remember what city it is. Retired Chief Danny Cotton sent me the report for it that we can do, but there hasn't been a lot. There's a one with the Parkade fire with a structural collapse killed a few firefighters. But it's good that we could do this, which it really shows a world perspective. But it's so hard to get reports, like you say. Even in Canada, they don't issue reports. I'm still digging information on Listowel, Ontario, and Winnipeg, right?
Yeah.
So it's tough to do.
And
Yeah.
that's the main problem. I have a theory that's not confirmed, but my theory is the reason why European countries have less line of duty deaths is because they don't keep track of it. Same as Canada doesn't have a federal agency that keeps track of it, and everybody's pointing at the U.S. saying, "Oh, they're killing 100 firefighters a year." It's like, yeah, but because they keep track of it, they know what's happening. And in
Right.
other countries, I know there's line of duty deaths, driving incidences like vehicle traffic collisions, stuff like that in Germany, pretty much all the time. But it's not collected. That information is not collected. There's no lessons learned put out, maybe within the departments, but not for general knowledge. Same problem as in Canada. I think it's a privacy thing, right? So
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Is a lack of those reports is tough. So we can do our best. I guess that's what we did for Yellowknife. We just looked at some of the other stuff,
yeah.
but yeah,
And that's what I've done here. I found a really good PowerPoint presentation that kind of outlines what happened there, and then the recommendations that followed up on it. So it's not as detailed as we're used to. And I try to get some background information through my German connections there, and that was hard because it's been a while too. Like in 1996. Um, I couldn't find any information of how many fire stations were in Cologne at that time. You can only find the up to date stuff that's on Wikipedia. That's all public knowledge. But going back that many years, it's very hard. And even finding somebody that was affected by this it's super hard. So I went by a highly recognized PowerPoint presentation, and then put it through the ringers and translated it and tried to translate the German terminology into our Canadian terminology so it makes sense. So I hope everybody can bear with me. And Paul, if you have any questions at any point, just give me a little sign and we'll stop and talk about it in between.
sounds great.
So Cologne Line of Duty Dev 1996, just to start over a little bit of information about the city of Cologne. Cologne was founded in 55 BC. Let that sink in for a second there. The city is known worldwide for its 2,000 years of history, cultural, architectural heritage, as well for its international significant events. So they got big exhibitions and stuff like that happening all the time there. So, due to the favorable location on the Rhine River, it became an important east west trade route and a center of power for the Catholic Church, contributing to the special importance of Cologne. The city became an important trading location and is today the transport hub with the highest volume of rail traffic and the largest container and transshipment rail station in Germany. So that's something for the fire department also to consider, right?
Right.
The Rhine ports are among the most important inland ports in Europe. We will talk about this, but they also have fireboats for obvious reasons.
In Turkey, they had a bunch of containers catch fire in the port after the earthquake, right?
Right.
Because they
Yeah.
fell on each other and stuff got jostled, and they had a huge fire. In addition to all the collapses and the people trapped, right? You get all these
Correct.
containers burning in the port. Yeah.
Yeah. So Cologne has a population of 1.1 million people over 405 square kilometers, which is 156 square miles. And more than 44,000 students are enrolled in one of the largest universities in Germany. Um, the largest original organized fire suppression effort was documented in 1360, where members of the guilds were decreed by city council to provide manpower to firefighters as bucket brigades. So that's the earliest I could find in organized fire suppression, 1360. So
That's a while ago.
that's a
Uh,
little while ago. Yeah,
there wasn't
absolutely.
much here. I mean, there was mainly indigenous people here in North America back
Yeah,
in the
what was it
1300s.
14 something? That's when Christopher
Right.
Columbus came
Yeah.
over. So
1492
yeah,
to Haiti. I
yeah,
was just doing the math there. So that's 7,000 people per square mile.
yeah.
That would
Pretty
be dense.
condensed.
That would be qualified on that. What was it? 15. What standard is that? The staffing standard. And if 1710.
Yeah,
1710. That would be six people per engine or something, right?
yeah. Yo, absolutely. Yeah. So the modern career fire department of the city of Cologne was founded in 1871 and is today, after Berlin, Hamburg, and Munich, the fourth largest fire department in Germany. And 1870 is kind of like where worldwide career fire departments started. I think like
Right.
in the States, there's some that started in the 1700s, but overall, that's kind of like the pivotal moment when they realized we need career people taking care of the fire suppression there. The Cologne Fire Department currently has 11 fire and rescue stations, as well as 4 ambulance stations. They call them rescue stations. So when they refer to fire rescue stations, they mean fire and ambulance, because the most fire services in Germany are integrated.
The way it should be.
Oh yeah, fire-based EMS probably it's definitely the best for the public.
For our listeners in that know themselves from the discussion this weekend, the way it should be,
The way
Chad.
it should be, yeah. But nowadays EMS sucks, so that's why nobody wants to do it, right?
Yep.
Um, the Cologne Fire Department also has a fireboat station and one air ambulance helicopter base that's based at the Cologne Bonn Airport. There are also multiple charitable ambulance services integrated in the Cologne Fire Department EMS. That is, for example, the Red Cross and the Maltese Cross. So they have multiple ambulances, ALS, BLS ambulances, and they are integrated into the Cologne EMS fire department service. The fleet comprises of 36 fire engines, 14 aerial trucks. Another 68 vehicles are available to the EMS system, and a grand total of 362 appliances between career and the volunteer department. The department has 2 fully staffed heavy rescue trucks with fire brigade cranes and 2 permanently manned fireboat stations. I know
A
you
crane.
would
They
love
got a crane. I
that.
love it.
Yeah. So the rescue truck and the crane are one unit. They always go together,
Okay.
right? So they are permanently manned, and the fireboats, I'm not sure they are permanently manned as well. I'm not sure about the size, but they are fairly big. They're pretty big boats. The basic training back then consisted of 12 months fire and rescue training, followed by 6 months EMT training. All firefighters are cross trained as either EMTs or paramedics, or comparable levels here. So today, the Cologne Fire Department has 1,700 career firefighters and is supported by a powerful volunteer fire brigade with over 800 members in 25 firehouses. They also
So
have
they
400
so in the city they have
within the
the
city.
career 1,400 people career stations out of what was it?
So
How many stations?
1,700 career firefighters and
Right,
11 stations. Yeah.
and then they have other stations that are volunteer, or do they work out of the career
No, they're
stations?
volunteer. Some I'm not 100% sure in Cologne, but in my old department we had some where they're sharing a station, but it was still separate.
Right, right, yeah. But
Or we had an ambulance in the volunteer firehouse that was staffed 24/7,
yeah,
right?
because I remember that in Karlsruhe when I answered, they said, when I went there for to go to Rosenbauer to Metz aerials, and we visited the fire station, and they had full time fire stations, and then they also had the volunteer stations in the same municipality.
Yes,
So, which is
absolutely.
unique to Europe. Really, we don't see that. I mean, we see fire departments that have career and volunteer members, but they're not usually a separate entity.
Usually not a separate entity. They're all together, and then yeah, again, 1,700 career firefighters, 800 members of the volunteer department. So that is a very powerful fire brigade. They also have 427 youth cadets.
Wow,
That's also something that's run through the volunteer department. They are very eager to recruit new volunteers, and then a lot of them they move on into the career department.
into career side. That's good. That's a good recruitment method.
It's a good recruitment system. Yeah. The dispatch center has 120 staff. The last number I found was 65, and I was corrected. They now have 120 staff, and they dispatch all fire rescue and EMS agencies within the city of Cologne. So they really expanded their dispatch. They almost doubled in size in the last 5 years or so. So in 1996, I found the information. Cologne had 9 fire stations and 4 ambulance stations, so a little bit less than nowadays. But I'm pretty sure the volunteers were still 25 members because these are all um, old departments. That some of them actually they go back before Cologne had a career fire department, right?
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, very traditional firehouses as well. So it's a pretty cool system. So the staffing at the time of the incident was 5 on an engine and 3 on an aerial. By 5 on an engine, it's a driver, the officer, and 3 firefighters. And then on the aerial, they were running 3. I know nowadays it depends on staffing, but they can drop down to 2. And you know those European aerials, they only have seats. They only seat 3 at best.
Right. They're usually not a crew cab. They're usually just a front two seats and a one or a middle seat,
Yeah,
or
and a
yeah,
middle seat.
on
Yeah,
a commercial chassis the way it should be. Oops.
yeah. And back then, same as today, the staffing for a tanker truck was based on availability, but it would be a minimum of 2, sometimes more. The engine crew had a chief officer, which is the captain, but they call them a chief officer, and we'll get into how they operate a little bit later. Driver operator, and then 3 firefighters in the back. So we're going to get into the incident here. So the property at Kierberger Straße 15 was built by the Iduna Insurance in 1972 and was divided into condominiums in 1992. Most of the apartments are used by the respective owners themselves. The building is 70 meters tall, 230 feet, and has 23 floors. So the call at Kierbergstraße came in as a basement fire and was reported in a 25-story residential high rise. So my research determined that it's 23 stories, but you know how that works. You know, you pull up to first on scene, we got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah, it's
right?
tall.
So
Yeah,
it's a tall building, exactly. The first alarm unit response consists of 2 engines, 1 aerial, 1 tanker, a support unit, and an ambulance, as well as a district chief. They call them BVA 3. So the first do engine, it was engine 2 and aerial 2, staged at the alpha side of the high rise near the main entrance. The property manager already waited at the main entrance. He pointed the engine 2 unit commander to the basement, but forgot to mention that he and an electrician were deep inside the basement level when the fire started and there was so much smoke down there that both had to make their way out of an unsecured basement window. This was not mentioned to the first arriving crews, which is pretty important. You think
Yeah.
that's information that would get, relayed to the first arriving crew, but
It's downstairs. See ya.
it's downstairs here. Exactly. Here are the keys. So um, at the time, there was no smoke in the lobby or outside the building visible. The stairs to the basement had light smoke. There was no residents in the lobby, and there was no apparent danger to the residents at this site. So it was something I tried to figure out. It didn't seem like they had a smoke detector system, alarm system in the building at all. Nobody's mentioning it in the whole report. There's no mentioning of fire alarms going off or smoke detectors going off. Smoke detectors is still a thing that's still promoted in Germany. It's slowly coming up. But back then, there was no smoke detectors.
So it wouldn't be alarmed or sprinklered, maybe.
72, I highly doubt that there were sprinklers in there, and it was also not mentioned in this. I'm not sure if the basement level would have had that. They do have a parkade, and there was also no mentioning of a sprinkler system there. So again, those are information I could unfortunately not get from these reports because they weren't that detailed, right? So now Engine 2 crew was assigned to fire attack to the basement. Fire attack 1 would be a three-person team. An experienced firefighter would be considered number 1, and 2 junior members would be members number 2 and 3. So this is how I labeled them, just so you guys can follow.
Right. So
So
not necessarily the officer. It would be the senior man and two others.
exactly. The officer would generally turn into the incident commander or
Right.
be part of the incident command system, and they will not go inside the structure. That's why I had three guys in the back there. So we got number 1, 2, and number 3. The victim of this report is number 3, so we can kind of focus on that one. So Fire Attack 1 stretch a high pressure booster line, 25 mil or 1 inch, to make quick entry into the building. Firetech One's number 1 had the keys from the property manager to unlock the basement door at the bottom of the stairs. Firetech 1 encountered thick, heavy smoke after opening the door. The approach to the basement hallway was hampered by the rubber lining of the booster reel. Number 3 had to go back to get more hose. Multiple friction points were created by stretching through the lobby, down the stairs, and into the hallway. After number 3 brought enough hose, the Fire Attack 1 team was able to make their way down the hallway to the elevators. The booster line was now completely extended and began to twist. I also tried to figure out how long that line is. If I'm going by hour length, it was probably 100 and 150 feet long. So they made it halfway down, and as in most high-rise buildings, halfway down there's your elevator, center core kind of, and then so they made it that far. Uh,
That's why I don't like rubber covered hose either because it's very hard to drag on a dry surface.
yeah, it's very hard to drag, and something that happens when we usually don't use these booster reels all the way out.
No.
If you have them all the way out, they start to twist,
Okay. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you get pinch points as well. So you don't even get good flow on these. With a high pressure rubber, I'm not sure, but so in the meantime, a second team, Fire Attack 2 from Engine 1 1, made their way down to a ramp into the underground parkade of the building while stretching a 42 mil or 1.5 inch attack line. The gate to the parkade was wide open. So at that time, of course, there's multiple other engines arriving while Fire Attack makes their way down. The density of the smoke started to increase, and more calls from concerned residents uh, were received by dispatch. Okay, after running out of hose, Firetech one's number 1 decided to abandon the booster line and return to the first floor to stretch a longer 42 mil attack line. Number 1 communicated this with the unit leader. Standard operating procedures at this kind of incident is that the engine slash driver sets up a gated wire at the entrance with a 42 millimeter backup hose line attached and flaked out in the lobby area. Engine 2 and Aerial 2's drivers completed that task. So Fire Attack 1 returned on par to the lobby, grabbed the 42 mil backup line, and returned to the basement. The lobby still only had light smoke at that time. So I'm guessing the door probably was self closing,
Yep.
closed a little bit on them because they had thick black smoke down there.
Probably two doors, probably one at the basement and one at the
Exactly.
lobby.
So number one requested to start a PPV fan at the entrance to keep the smoke in the basement. The PPV fan was set up and started inside the lobby, pointing down the stairs. District 3 chief arrived on scene and assumed instant command. At this point, a BA emergency team, in German it's called a Rettungstrupp, with three firefighters, probably from Tanker 10. Again, I had a tough time to figure that one out where they came from, was standing by close to engine 11. Fire Tech 1 followed the booster line back to the basement level. The stairwell had only light smoke due to the PPV fan in the lobby. After reaching the end of the booster line in the elevator area, Fire Tech 1 started looking for the seat of the fire while the heat increased. They started applying water, and there was no report on what kind of stream they used, penciling or straight, but it had very little effect on the heat. While Fire Tech 1
In Europe at that time, just discharging water into the area would be an accepted practice, right? Even if you don't see the fire, trying to do gas cooling a little
gas
bit, if you
cooling
will,
penciling. Yeah,
right? Penciling, gas cooling. Yep.
absolutely. But it didn't do anything. So, also, we might mention thermoimaging cameras weren't a thing in 1996, right?
No, no, they were barely invented. Yeah.
Yeah. While Fire Tech 1 was in the elevator hallway of the basement, Fire Tech 2 had reached a door that also led to the hallway with Fire Tech 1. And this is where I tried to get more information about Fire Tech 2. So they made their way into the parkade on the basement level, went all the way in. There was really no report if they had heavy smoke or smoke at all or light smoke. There was no mention, but they were interviewed, and they were reporting that they were hearing Fire Attack 1 and the rumbling of fire from behind the door. But there's no account why the door wasn't opened by Fire Attack 1 or there was any attempt made to make contact with Fire Attack 1. So before Engine 11 started entering the building, the unit commander of Engine 11 started air accountability for Fire Attack 2. I do have a schematic of where they were staging. So it's basically the Engine 1, Fire Attack 1 was on the Alpha side. Engine 11 was on the Delta side. So they couldn't really see each other. It was kind of like offset from each other. But they gave verbal the pressure reading verbally from the unit commander engine 11 to engine 2 and to the instant commander. While all this was going on, the Cologne Fire Dispatch Center now started to get calls from the residents at Kierberger Straße. The instant commander received the information that somebody experienced breathing difficulties on the 22nd floor. Now this whole thing is starting to unravel here.
Unravel.
Yeah. So IC decided to send two of the three BA emergency team members to investigate this 22nd floor. So basically dissolving their RIT team.
That's the
Uh,
RIT team. Yeah.
yeah. So the IC backfilled the rescue team with a driver from Aerial 2 and called for one additional engine. Kind of like what we do, like we call one or two more additional units, right, to expand
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
alarm there. So the density of the smoke started to increase, and more calls from concerned residents were received by dispatch. So the reason for that is that at the same time, the PPV fan in the lobby lost power due to the increase in smoke coming from the basement. Also, if it's in a closed room and you have a combustion engine in there, so it was not an electric fan, it was a combustion fan.
Right. Yeah. And it ran out of oxygen.
It ran out of oxygen. So the unit commander ordered two firefighters with filter masks to remove the fan from inside the building and to start it up again, pointing towards the entrance. So there are two guys going in, moving this thing outside, which it should have been
Pressure the lobby instead of the base. How many units were on the initial response again? I'm just going up to look at that again.
uh, two engines, a tanker, an aerial, a support unit, an ambulance, and a chief.
Okay. Not extreme for a high rise. That's pretty low. Yeah.
No, pretty low, for, especially when it comes into the basement fire. But
Right. Yeah.
so the at this point, the IC called for a second alarm. So the unit commander two and the driver area two noticed people on the vestibule of the lobby area that seemed to be in distress. When you look at the pictures, you can imagine it's kind of like a glass front, kind of like protruding, and the building had kind of like an H uh, floor plan. So they had the vestibule over the lobby area, and then suddenly there were people up there.
Okay.
Um, so they were obviously in distress. So they started using ground ladders to uh, access the or assess the vestibule, and they found a child and a blind woman with smoke inhalation. Both were removed by the ground ladders. So now they got multiple victims, people
Yeah.
inside complaining, right? And
This is going south
this is
fast.
going so fast, right? The unit commander of Engine 11 was now in charge of triage. That was the same guy that's in charge of the air accountability.
Okay.
So now the IC now increased the response to a third alarm, but they're still not there yet. The remaining rescue team was now helping Engine Three's crew to set up a foam attack to the parquet basement level. So here's again something I couldn't figure out at what point Fire Attack 2 left the parquet because they were setting now up a foam attack. So I'm guessing there's heavy smoke down there, and they're like, we cannot fight this fire from the inside. We have to come out, and that was a common practice back then. We used
Medium.
medium extension
So the
foam.
big foam tubes on the nozzle.
Exactly, and
No high expansion.
we would just flood the whole basement
Right.
till the
Right.
foam comes out of the windows, basically,
Right.
right?
Because
So that was
that's
the
still a
intent,
trend here. There are some departments around here that have a high expansion foam generator. You hook up your foam line to a PPV to an exhaust fan, if you will,
right?
or whatever. Stetler's got one. Clearwater's got one. I've
Yeah,
never actually used it on a fire, but that was always a theory. Is you could fill the space
yeah,
with high expansion or
yeah.
medium expansion foam,
The
which I
medium
use a lot.
expansion worked fine because you can just use it off a hose line. You
It's
attach
easy. Yeah. Yeah.
this big nozzle on it, right? You got
Right.
the foam aerator and then a little mesh in there, and so you got to get a really nice foam. The advantage is if you use it on the outside, it doesn't blow away right away, like
Right. Right.
expansion foam. So
Yeah. The high
anyhow,
expansion
so
is so light.
now Fire Tech One is still in the basement, and they have a low air alarm going off. And the number one ordered the retreat from the basement along the attack line and the hallway walls. So number one radioed that they are low on air on their way back. This message was never acknowledged by the IC or the rescue team
Uh oh.
because obviously they had their hands full with victims within the high-rise. The radio traffic was increased due to the rescues and setting up of
Oh,
the
foam.
foam attack. So everybody was talking on the radio. While
We've heard
backing
that
out of the
before.
basement, firefighter number three's rope started to pace out of his bag, with without number three noticing. So I want to talk about this rope. And it's still something that's been used. It's kind of like a search rope, a self-rescue rope, and they're all in linen bags. And you just either throw them over your BA with a rope, or you attach it to your firefighter belt.
Yep.
Back then, they also had a firefighter belt with a lanyard and a little axe. And so this thing comes running out. And
And
so at
it
the
could be used for self rescue or search or
oh,
whatever.
search,
Yep.
exactly. But standard procedure was you a fire attack, you take this thing with you,
With you. Okay.
no matter what. Standard operating procedure, you take that with you, right? So at the bottom of the stairwell, number three noticed number two and number one that he was stuck. So number one radioed back, right? One member is stuck, and we are running out of air. This radio transmission also was never
Also
acknowledged.
not acknowledged.
So number two went back to number three and tried to see if he can unstuck him. Number two informed him about the rope back and his search rope. At that point, number three wasn't reacting or helping to get freed up. Number three kept leaning forward so that the rope was tight, and it was impossible for number two to free number three. While number two tried to grab a knife off the belt of number three. Number three, lost consciousness and collapsed. Number two, tried in vain to find a knife and even took his gloves off to better help freeing number three. He suffered severe burns to his hands from this action. Number two also tried his fire axe, again, standard equipment on the belt, and tried to chop it, but he was unable to do this due to the burns he received. And it's really hard with an axe in zero visibility trying to chop a rope. So number one called for a knife to be brought down, but also that message was never received. So any communication from these two, three out of the basement never made it through. Another call for an escape hood and a knife, usually the escape hoods are usually used for civilians, was received by multiple firefighters on the outside. So other firefighters heard the call for the knife and an escape hood. So Unit Commander 1-1 sent a firefighter from Engine 3 to bring the requested escape hood and knife.
So command was the one missing the transmissions.
Yes,
The other firefighters were potentially hearing them. Command may have been task saturated or
absolutely.
something, right? Because they weren't on the wrong channel. The radios were working.
Yeah.
And explain the escape hoods to our North American audience.
So the escape hoods, if you guys ever look at Paris Fire Department, I'm a big fan of them. They're using all kinds of interesting tactics, strategies. An escape hood, I think it's Drager, is designed for civilians. There's a couple versions of it. There's one with a filter. It has a CO filter in it. Unfortunately, it expires relatively fast. That's why a lot of departments go to a air hookup to your buddy breather on your SCBA, so you can share the air to bring people out through smoky hallways. If you cannot keep the hallways clear of smoke and you want to evacuate the people, don't keep them in place. You will bring escape hoods, and they got tons of them.
Which of course in Europe or in the UK anyway, they don't have to have two stairways in apartment buildings. They can go with one stairway, which necessitates the use of the escape hoods because if you're using it for fire attack, of course it's full of smoke, right? The doors don't close, whatever. We prop them open.
Exactly.
But yeah, I know they have them on some planes too. Some airlines
Yes.
carry them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't
In the
know if North
airplanes,
American
they
ones
have
do, but
them. Yeah.
in Europe, the
Yeah.
airlines that carry these escape hoods, and I know I talked about them a few times here, and everybody looked like I had another nose growing out of the side of my face or something. But
I
yeah,
know, but it's really taking care of the civilians, right?
right,
So I mean, yeah, you can share your mask, which is very heroic, but
right.
now you're taking the air, the
Hmm.
smoke in, right? So, um, oh well. So this engine three firefighter that was supposed to bring the hood and the knife had no portable radio. He was part of the crew that set up the foam attack. So again, there weren't more crews on site yet.
Right.
Um, the IC had sent a rescue team to the front entrance, but it hasn't deployed it yet. So I'm guessing that was a team that was built up by the next arriving engine,
Right.
right? So number one left the other two to get the requested items. Before leaving, he handed number two a flashlight. And keep in mind, he's already on low air. So number one found the way up the stairs and through the lobby. When he left the main entrance, he ran into the Engine 3 firefighter. So number one told the Engine 3 firefighter to come with him. Engine 3 firefighter was surprised because he thought number one just needs the tool. As they entered the smoky lobby, one ran out of air. Before number one left the smoke-filled lobby, he instructed Engine 3 firefighters on where to find his team. So number one ripped his mask off and got lost trying to get out of the smoke-filled lobby. So this thing is zero visibility now, multiple hose lines in there, right? The rescue team luckily observed the Engine 3 firefighters entering the building and followed him. So they're kind of like, what the hell is this guy doing there? As they entered the now zero visibility lobby, they found number one and brought him outside. So number one told the rescue team about the emergency in the basement and how to get there. So again, it gets a little more complicated too because there's a lot of struggling going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Rit self-deployed basically. Fortunately, they saw firefighter three going in there and
Yes,
wondering what was going down.
yeah. Absolutely. So
Basically, the lack of a mayday procedure
and
or being
mayday
called.
accountability,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So engine three firefighter actually went down. So he had a mask and everything with him. He reached number two and number three at the bottom of the stairs, and despite zero visibility and high heat, was able to cut the rope of number three. Engine three firefighter number two now started to move number three firefighter up a few steps. Number two had to stop because he was out of air and started going up the stairs. Engine three firefighter remained with number three and attempted to move him by himself, but to no avail. On the way up the stairs, number two ran into the rescue team.
Right.
The team had difficulties following the hose through the lobby and got lost. When they finally found the stairs, they found number two coming up. So yeah, even just entering that lobby area, that rescue team got lost, not even being able to find the stairs.
Wow.
So they removed number two firefighter from the building and made their way back into the smoke. Due to the extent of the rescue and the information from number two, the incident commander decided to assign multiple rescue teams. So now the fire wasn't important anymore, or the civilians. Now it was all about the firefighters in the basement.
Right. Right.
Engine 3 firefighter recognizes the hopelessness of the situation without a radio to call for help, and due to the high heat, he decided to retreat up the stairs. He made it into the lobby where he got lost as well. So now we already had the number one getting lost, the rescue team getting lost, fighting number two, bringing him out, and now number three comes up, and the engine three firefighter gets up and gets lost. So he finally ran into the rescue team that, for the third time, attempted to reach the downed firefighter number three. Another rescue team was deployed by IC to of members from Engine 12 and another rescue team member of, so to a total of four. So now they beefed up the rescue team. They eventually found number three and removed him from the building. CPR was administered, and firefighter Stampy was transported to hospital where he succumbed to his injuries 3 days later.
Wow. Wow. What a mess, right? I mean,
What a mess! Yeah,
you can see how it evolved, and the lack of adequate response in the start is probably a factor.
that was a factor. Also, that there was no real accountability system in place.
Right.
I
Where
mean,
where was
they had somebody keeping track of that, but it was verbally
right.
transmitted,
Right.
and these officers had other jobs to do. And then once the rescue started,
Where was command?
um,
Do you know?
I have no idea where he was positioned. Yeah, I
Standing
think
in a truck, whatever.
he
Yeah.
was probably fourth and back. And so in the German system, when the battalion chief arrives to assume instant command, the truck captains here would be part of the instant command system there. So they're basically considered chief officers as well. They would become sector officers.
Right.
Well, you basically had three sector officers there, and but because it was in different locations and radio communication wasn't great, they ran into real problems there, right? So it was very confusing. Again, I couldn't find those details because I was looking for
Yeah.
them and I just couldn't find them because it's been a while. But the gist of it is when we go into the recommendations here, it really defined how the German fire service now trains SCBA operations, selects SCBA wearers, and the accountability system that came out of it, and a few other things when it comes to equipment. So,
Cool.
okay, so let's go through the recommendations.
All
So,
right.
the use of a booster line. It was probably now it's I think it's completely banned in Germany to use rubber booster lines for any kind of interior attack. Um, there was a lack of a 360. So they said, well, if we would have done a 360, we would have known that this booster really wouldn't have made it. So that was kind of like skipped. And that's something nowadays that's been done on a very regular basis. Um, so the reason why the booster line is not used is the limitation in length, the difficulty to advance a rubber hose through a stairwell and down a hallway. It's very labor intense, and you have no means of extending that hose line. So we couldn't say, hey, stop the water flow. We'll extend it from the outside so you can drag it further.
Right.
There's no way to do this. And what really caused trouble here was the twisting of the hose line when it was fully extended. So number three, that firefighter that succumbed to his injuries, he went back and hauled ass basically.
Right. He worked the most probably in running back up and down the stairs to untwist
Exactly, and it
and
was
then go
twist.
back and get another hose and go back down.
That's why he was the first one that ran out of air.
Right.
Right. So now the recommendation is only use booster lines when the length of the building is known and it's an unobstructed access. So straight line. Booster lines for interior attack are now banned, and that's basically all over Germany. You will still see them in other parts of Europe. I know the Dutch, they love their booster line, high pressure booster lines still. But they are very,
It was the same here. Like booster reels were pretty well out of favor in many, many departments because people would typically, because it's easy to reload and stuff, they would use it for beyond what it's capable of. Of course, when North America sort of standardized on low pressure pumps, max 250 psi. The booster reel can't flow very much water because of the high resistance in the 1 inch hose. So a lot of North America used to have either two stage or medium pressure pumps. That all went away. The booster reel was still being used for fires that were potentially over its capability, and in my lifetime I've seen a complete turnaround from have booster reels, get rid of the booster reels to people are buying them again now, although restricting people to use them like this. You don't use them inside, you don't use them for a car fire, etc., etc. Or if you do use them for bigger stuff, you use a high pressure booster reel that can deliver the flows of 100 gallons a minute or 400 liters a
the
minute or
flows are
whatever.
still very low, but that's not the intent. They want to use the high pressure lines for gas cooling, which is still advocated there. So, but in general terms, Germany no interior attack with the garden hose. The life safety robe, that's something I could never wrap my head around because I had to wear this stupid thing. I trained on bailout with this, and it's a very, very rudimentary system. It's not even a Kevlar rope. As far as I know, it's just a standard nylon rope. I think it's 10 mil, maybe.
Yeah, because you can
Uh,
you can buy that on SCBA's here. You can buy a bailout rope kit with a descent device of some sort. We bought some for a while out in Clearwater. The guys thought we should have these, but then after using them for a couple of years, they decided that it was too bulky on the SCBA and that that they didn't really need it. So um,
Yeah. So the thing with these was it really looked like the 1950s when you looked at them. They were in like a reddish cloth bag with a little like a wooden T knob that you stick through that loop, right, to secure it, and then
okay,
you just throw that rope in there. And the problem here was it came out because there's no Velcro, there's
right.
no securement to it, so that thing just flaked out without the firefighters noticing, and it wrapped around that stupid twisted booster line.
Hose, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the problem on the way out. He just got hung up. So not even sure where he attached that rope back. If it was on the belt or if he threw it over his BA. But again, zero visibility, and the one firefighter took his gloves off to help to free him. So it's really hard. So what they came up with was a better closing system for the bag. The bags are now actually, I think they're Nomex now, so they actually,
Probably.
yeah, and a better system of loading the rope. So that rope is still in use in a lot of departments. Um, I did some uh, unofficial surveys and asked how often did you use that rope when you were on an interior attack for anything, and 99.9% of the guys say I never used it ever for anything. Not bailing out. And the bailout system, if you use this bailout system, you have to wear your firefighter belt, um, because that's where your bailout, the descent control device is on. There's also no means of attaching it to an anchor point. So it would take a long. I mean, you could figure it out, but it would take a long time. So right there, it's kind of like this bailout is meant for. Oh, it's going to flash on me. My only chance is out the window, but it's not an easy setup. So
No, no, it's hard to do.
again, they still have it, but it is with the generation Y coming up. All those millenniums, they are questioning why do we have this, right?
Right. I know the
So
blue card guys are big with like put the fire out. You don't need a bailout rope. Put the
yeah,
fire out. And if it's on fire so much you can't get in there to put it out, don't go in, right?
we'll go in.
So I know
And
it's
you know what? If you think like we have search ropes, but we would probably use it in the appropriate environment,
a
like
sprinkler building full of cold
sprinkler
smoke. Yeah,
building, big warehouse kind of style where you don't want to, you just want to do a quick search, right? That's when you can use it. But again, they probably got to change the SOPs on that one. So the other problems encountered in the recommendations: the loss of the PPV fan, the insufficient opening caused a reversing of the smoke and the choking of the combustion engine on the PPV. So they also changed their procedures on PPV that the opening always has to be bigger than the intake. It should be, of course, on the opposite side of where the fire is. And it's been used a lot, positive pressure attack, because of that single staircase in most
right. You got to
places.
protect it.
You got to protect it. And if the fire is blowing out the window,
Right.
when you charge that stairwell with your positive pressure, you open the door, you got that opening,
You have
right?
a
So it's
vent.
not the
Yeah.
reversing. It's only a small window though, because UL did tests on this one, and I know Lars Axelson also looked into this because pressures will equalize within the building. So you get a slight positive pressure, and then the pressure is going to equalize, but the fire is still going to have more pressure than the PPV fan. So the flow path will return to wherever the lowest pressure is. But we use it quite often, and it works.
Full time North American fire officer actually learning from ULFSRI and Lars Axelson and others, right? Because that's what we need to do. We always need to be training, whether it's on duty training or on your own training. So good for you.
Exactly. So the SCAVA problems, which is a big thing here, there was back then. It was no regular air pressure checks. I didn't know that because I started in 1990 and we regularly checked our pressures, but apparently it wasn't done there. There wasn't enough rest pressure, so they used the one third rule. So one third in, one third out, one third for safety.
Hang on a minute now. You're saying back in '96, Europe decided that 25% wasn't maybe enough to get out. Let's
Mhm.
divide it into thirds, which now NFPA North America has adopted about, 5 years ago or so, when they changed the low air alarm to 33% instead of 25%.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So that came out of this incident, right? That they decided, hey, this is what we have to do. Um, so not enough stress resistance under extraordinary stressful circumstances. I had to actually Google that translation because it's quite wordy in German, and I knew what they meant, but to translate that into uh, English, it was kind of hard. So really, what it comes down to is realistic SCBA training, live fire training. Don't just have people crawling around in a room that has no heat, no smoke, and you always going to be successful in your training. That does not create stress resistance. You have to put people under stress.
When I went to Carswell, they had the whole basement, a big section of the basement was an SCBA training room, and it was all cages that you crawled through, and they had a control room just outside with a window on it,
Yeah.
and they could change the lighting. They had strobes, they had noise, big loudspeakers to make noise to create a stressful environment to the people training and with their SCBA to search and fall through the floor and climb back up and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. We're getting them now here in North America. usually outside in a sea can somewhere, but at least it's similar. You can always bang on the outside of the sea can with a hammer. Um, but yeah, that's cool.
And
So all came out of
that all came out of this. Some departments already had it,
right.
but nobody has died yet to that point. So it's like, why would we do this? This department is stupid. We know everything better, right? And then suddenly, firefighter dies, and then everybody's like, oh my god. So another thing that they encountered was the lack of air accountability. Air management was it was in its infancies, but this incident really, really pushed forward. So the accountability system before entering a structure, separate air accountability officers, a strict following of the two-third, one-third rule, realistic SCBA training and stress inoculation, RIT, and firefighter survival training. So this came all out of this. When I started with my career department, they had accountability boards, and every single firefighter, when I started my shift, I had to check my own SCBA, not the driver, myself, because it's my ass on the line, it's my air. I'm checking, and then I write my name down, I write my payroll number down, I write the starting pressure down, and it had also on that tag was also the unit number. So now when we were assigned to fire attack, I gave that tag to my driver. The driver set this. You can hang it on a little webbing. He hung it on his pump panel, stuck stuck the tags in, and started a timer. So now, when the event expanded, a accountability officer was assigned by IC.
Yep.
He walked over and collects all. There might have been 3 or 4 engines. Everybody switches off their own engine. We rarely took this 2 lines off the same rig. And now he has all these boards that are assigned to a unit with names and the starting pressure and the timer. And this guy's only job was keeping track of that.
That's sort of the UK is doing that too, right? Remember
UK
we
is
we
doing
talked
it.
about that
Germany
during
is
Shirley
doing it.
Towers. We're kind of doing it here, but not.
It's
We
yeah.
don't have boards with timers and stuff like that typically.
No, not
No.
at all. There's no external accountability when it comes to air. The only accountability we have is to ourselves. And for me as an officer, I have to make sure that the guys check their. And for Scott uses the heads-up display, and I'm pretty sure everybody else
They
now.
all do. They all have heads up. That's required now.
So that's basically the accountability system, but it's on the inside. Now, if you're in
Right.
a stressful situation and you have a victim, you have a mayday, you have all this stuff, um, do you really pay attention to your own air? Is the officer paying attention to your air? Probably not. That's where everybody in Europe is like, what? You don't have anybody on the outside? Who's keeping track of that, right?
Yeah.
And then rerunning out till the clacker goes on, and then we walk out and say, see, everything was fine, right?
But
So
when the clacker goes on or the bell or whatever,
that's what we're
technically that is a mayday.
yes,
You
absolutely.
reached your emergency supply. You should never reach it. And I think that's one of the top 5 NIOSH things
Yeah.
is that, not improper air management. We're not managing the air. Here, typically the officer of the crew should be managing the air and making sure that, hey, we need to be going out, which is why there's a heads up display when it goes to, 2 lights or whatever, that you better be heading out because you never want to hit one light because that's your 1/3.
You
So
also have to keep in mind, like everybody uses different air. So when we do air accountability, everybody makes it so complicated. Let's say you have the 3-man crew, so I gotta keep track of 3 guys. Like no, you just keep after the first 5 minutes. So you have 5 minute reminders. Check on the air, right? So the accountability officer actually goes on the air and says, "Fire Tech One, what's your pressure?"
okay, yeah,
Has
yeah.
nothing to do with can report or anything. It's purely air management. 5 minutes in, how much air did you use? And then he does the calculation with the guy that used the most air
Okay.
and bases it off that one guy. I don't care about the other two because they're using less air. I'm concerned about the guy
The
that
lowest
uses
guy, yeah.
the most air, right? So,
You're looking for Paul's air consumption, not Dirk's.
because we all go in together, we all come out together. So you always want to work with the biggest guy that uses the most air because it's shorter duration for you. So the other problems they encountered was radio communication. Duh, we heard that before. It was too much radio traffic and not enough radios. So back then, really, not everybody had a radio. It was usually the attack team leader, it was called. So the number one had a radio, the other twos did not.
Which is probably why that extra guy didn't have a radio.
Exactly. Number that
Yeah,
that
because
engine
he
three
wasn't on an
firefighter was
attack
just
team. He was just
exactly.
grabbed from standing outside on the sidewalk to say, "Hey, we'll go take this downstairs." Yeah.
Exactly. So he couldn't call for help either. So the recommendation, of course, is better radio discipline and separate channels for inside and outside teams. That's something we still do in Germany. And I know there's some departments they have the TAC channels, different TAC channels for inside crews and outside crews. Back in the old country, in my department, we had TAC channel 1 for general fireground operations and TAC channel 3 just for the interior. In my department, the officer also didn't go inside. He was kind of like the outside guy, but he had the radio on three. Uh, he might have become the air accountability officer.
Hmm.
And if somebody else was assigned air accountability, you would just monitor TAC 3 because that's where all the interior guys were in. So that was really good on that level. Made it a little bit more complicated for IC because he needed at
Two
least two
radios.
radios,
Yeah.
and the dispatch channel was basically in the truck. So most chiefs in Germany have an eight. I think almost everybody has an eight, and the eight becomes the liaison. So when the chief says, "Hey, I need more units,"
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
goes through that eight, right? Calling help. So they've been having eights for forever.
It's like every report we've reported on so far. Battalion chiefs need an aid, multiple radios, separate channels, declare a mayday. Yeah.
Because even here, you had three. Basically, you had three an instant commander, two sector officers, and they are already overwhelmed. Right? And again, that was something they didn't mention in there. If that battalion chief actually had an eight, I'm
Mm.
assuming they had one,
You don't
but he
know.
was probably also busy with stuff. Um, so no tools available to cut the rope or wires. Inaccessible knife on the turnout gear. Tough to use knife in zero vis and with gloves. So what came out of that one is every SCBA now in Germany has some means of a cutting tool. Some look like a poultry scissor. Others have kind of like a dull tipped knife with a little hook so you can catch a rope or a wire. And they're also like serrated blades, so super sharp. It will actually cut electrical wire as well. And so that's what every SCBA shoulder strap has. It's not personalized, it's on the SCBA itself.
I always carried that. I have two of them. It's a Smith and Wesson makes it. It's a knife,
Okay.
uh, and it's got dull tip, so you can use it as a screwdriver. You can't stab yourself with it. Serrated blade, and then it has a windshield punch or a tool you can punch a hole with. You can use it to cut through drywall, stuff like that, cut wires. And I always carried it in my coat pocket so I could grab it or in a same location all the time. And lots of departments now have bought those channel lock cable cutters
Right.
that they hang with a carabiner on the SCBA.
Yeah.
And although I struggled with the cost to buy for. I had I don't know how many SCBA in Clearwater, 30, 40 SCBA. So, but I would buy like 10 a year and put them on the SCBA. So that's good.
Well, it's still cheaper than buying it individual. Like, oh, here's your fancy knife, but even those multi tools that we use in zero visibility, they're useless. They are
Yeah,
absolutely
no, it has
useless.
to be something that you can operate without all the time. I keep one of motorcycling.
Departments that go into basement fires all the time, they need that. They run into those cables, right? For everybody else, like I have never encountered saggy cables in the structure fire here because it's
But I
usually
mean, that was a
residential.
problem. It was a problem in Shirley Towers because they'd added the internet cables in the hallway. It was a problem in the. We haven't done that episode yet, but McDonald's restaurant in Houston or Dallas,
Yeah.
where the T-bar ceiling fell on the guys, and then they were trying to cut the T-bar and all the wires. They're all caught in their entanglement props, right? So yeah, good.
I actually saw just the other day. Somebody was talking about the tubing, the HVAC tubing. It's basically just wire, right, covered with like a aluminum kind of
Yep. Yeah.
tinfoil kind of,
Yep.
and that
Tinfoil. Yep.
tinfoil actually burns off. When
Right.
that
And then
burns
you have
off,
this wire.
you have this wire, and then
Right.
if
You
you're
got to cut
you're
it.
pulling sealing, this might come down, right? So there's lots of wires, so that might be coming in handy. So, so in general, this incident changed the SCBA operations, how they were conducted in Germany. The training for SCBA was intensified, and RIC procedures were standardized. All fire departments now follow air accountability procedures and a standardized incident command system. So again, pivotal incident for Germany that affected so many areas up to this day. So that's why I wanted to talk about this. And since it's March, I didn't say the date, but I'm pretty sure it was in March.
March. Yeah.
And
Maybe you
1990.
didn't say the day.
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
So
Oh well,
unfortunate.
but yeah, this is great, Dirk, and your great first script, and it's a good incident to study. 96, lots has changed since 96, but some of these same things keep coming up. I mean, we just did, Baltimore or Bryan, Texas, or whatever. Bryan didn't have some of these issues, but the Baltimore one, many of these same issues, command oversaturated, sectors not being able to answer the radio,
Yeah,
people trapped, lack of resources, air monitoring,
yeah.
etc. Not calling the Mayday.
Super sofa fire, the booster lines, right? Booster lines for big fires. I mean, there was it was a flow problem, not an advancement problem, but you know, it's yeah, it's recurring, and communication. I think that's one of those things. Yeah, that's we should have a podcast like a tailboard talk about all the findings we have and just the recurring stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, because we're actually becoming, somewhat layperson knowledgeable on fire reports and line of duty deaths and stuff like that. I know I've been using some of the stuff that we talk about in my incident command training classes and stuff, and which is good. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another emergency traffic podcast. We appreciate your interest and hope that you find them informative, and interesting. Give us a star, a like, a thumbs up on the app that you use to listen to us. These mean a lot to us, and they help the algorithms for other people to learn about our podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Podcast Traffic, or the Facebook page, or the Emergency Traffic Podcast at gmail.com.
Stay safe.